Hello, Taurus. I need you to stop scrolling and really focus on what I'm about to tell you because this is time sensitive and it involves someone specific. Someone you used to talk to regularly. Someone who was once a consistent presence in your daily life, in your texts, in your calls, in your thoughts. And then for whatever reason, the communication stopped. Maybe you cut it off deliberately. Maybe it just faded the way things sometimes do without either person making a clear decision to end it. Maybe they pulled away and you let them. Maybe you pulled away and you've spent time wondering if that was the right call. Whatever the specific shape of that silence has been, I need you to know that it's about to break. Something is moving on their end right now, in this exact window of time. And what happens next is going to matter. Let me describe the energy I'm picking up around this person so you can identify exactly who I'm talking about. Because I know there might be more than one name that comes to mind when I say someone you stopped communicating with. This person isn't a casual acquaintance whose disappearance from your life barely registered. This is someone whose absence actually meant something. Someone whose name still creates a small reaction in your chest when it comes up, whether that reaction is warmth, complicated grief, anger, longing, or some tangled combination of several of those feelings at once. If multiple names are surfacing for you right now, pay attention to which one comes with the strongest physical sensation. That's your person. That's who this reading is about. Here's what's been happening on their end during this silence, because understanding their internal experience is going to help you understand what's coming. This person has not been as unaffected by the silence as their lack of contact might have suggested. I know it's easy to assume that someone who stops reaching out has simply moved on, has stopped thinking about you, has filed your connection away as resolved or unimportant. But that's not what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is someone who has thought about reaching out more times than you'd probably guess. Someone who has typed messages and deleted them. Someone who has seen things throughout their day. A song, a place, a random object that triggered a memory of you and felt the pull to text but talked themselves out of it. Why did they talk themselves out of it? Again and again. Despite that pull. A few different reasons depending on your specific situation, and I want to walk through these because one of them is going to resonate strongly with what actually happened between you. For some of you, this person stayed silent out of pride or fear of rejection. Maybe there was a falling out, a disagreement, a hurt that neither of you fully addressed before the silence set in. And in the aftermath, this person has been waiting, almost stubbornly, for you to make the first move, even while privately wishing you would. They've been telling themselves that reaching out first would mean admitting they were wrong, or admitting they need you, or risking being met with continued silence on your end, which would confirm their worst fear, that you've truly moved on without them. That fear has kept them frozen, even as their desire to reconnect has only grown stronger over time. For others, this person stayed silent because they genuinely believed it was the right thing to do, even though it didn't feel good. Maybe circumstances made continued contact complicated. Maybe there was someone else involved, a relationship, an obligation, something that made staying in touch with you feel inappropriate or confusing at the time. And they made the difficult choice to step back, not because they stopped caring, but because they thought stepping back was the responsible thing to do given the circumstances. But circumstances change. And I'm seeing that whatever made staying away feel necessary before is shifting now, which is exactly what's creating the opening for this silence to break. For some of you, the silence happened because this person was going through something internally that made them pull away from everyone, not just you specifically. A depressive period, a major life stressor, a crisis of identity or purpose that made them retreat into themselves and unintentionally let several relationships go quiet, yours included. If this is your situation, I want you to know that their silence was never really about you at all. It was about their own internal weather, and now that weather is clearing. They're coming back into themselves, becoming more capable of connection again, and you're one of the people they're going to want to reconnect with as they reemerge. Here's what's shifting right now that's about to break this silence. There's been a trigger. Something has happened recently, in the last few days, that has made this person think about you with unusual intensity. Maybe they saw something that reminded them sharply of a memory you share. Maybe someone mentioned your name in conversation and it landed differently than it has in the past. Maybe they've simply reached a point in their own reflection, their own growth, their own quiet processing of where their life currently stands, where your absence has become impossible to keep ignoring. Whatever the specific trigger, the effect is the same. They're standing at the edge of reaching out, closer to actually doing it than they've been in a long time. I want to be clear about the timeline here, because urgency matters in how I'm framing this reading. This isn't a vague, someday they might reach out energy. This is close. Within the coming days, possibly even within hours of you watching this, you're going to see evidence of movement from this person. It might start small. A like on something you've posted after a long stretch of complete digital silence. A view on your story that you notice because you've gotten used to checking and seeing nothing. And then, following that small initial movement, an actual message, possibly tentative at first. Hey, it's been a while. Or, I've been thinking about you. Or even something deceptively casual that's actually loaded with the weight of everything unsaid between you. What I need you to do with this information is decide, before it happens, how you want to respond. Because the moment this message arrives, you're going to feel a rush of emotion that might make clear thinking difficult in real time. So let's think it through now, with a clear head, so you're prepared, rather than reactive when the moment actually comes. First, ask yourself honestly what you actually want from this person re-entering your life. Not what feels good in the abstract fantasy version of reconciliation, but what you genuinely want in reality. Do you want this relationship back in your life in its previous form? Do you want closure more than continuation? Do you want to know what happened and why, even if you don't necessarily want to resume regular contact? There's no wrong answer here, but you need clarity on your own desires before this message arrives, because the conversation that follows is going to move quickly once it starts, and you don't want to be figuring out what you want in real time, while also trying to navigate what they're saying. Second, I want you to consider what unresolved feelings you're still carrying about how the silence happened in the first place. If there was hurt involved, if there was a sense of betrayal or disappointment in how things ended or faded, that needs to be acknowledged rather than buried under the excitement of reconnection. It's possible to be genuinely glad someone is reaching back out while also needing to address what happened before you can move forward authentically. Don't skip that step just because the reconnection itself feels exciting or relieving. Real reconciliation requires honesty about the past, not just enthusiasm about the present. Third, and this is important, pay attention to how this person approaches the reconnection, because their approach is going to tell you a lot about whether they've actually grown or changed since the silence began, or whether they're simply repeating old patterns dressed up as renewed interest. Are they taking accountability for their part in the silence, if accountability is warranted? Are they curious about your life, about who you've become during the time you've been apart? Or are they simply picking up exactly where things left off, as though no time has passed and no growth has occurred on either side? The quality of how they re-enter matters as much as the fact that they're re-entering at all. Let me speak to what's happening on your side of this equation too, because your energy matters just as much as theirs in how this unfolds. I'm picking up that you've done real work during this silence, whether you fully recognize it yet or not. Time apart from this person has allowed you to process, to gain perspective, to potentially see the relationship more clearly than you could while you were inside it daily. You're not the same person who was last in regular contact with them. You've grown. You've possibly healed wounds that existed in that connection, even without their direct involvement in that healing process. And that growth is going to serve you well as you navigate whatever comes next, because you're going to be approaching this potential reconnection from a place of greater self-possession than you had before. I also want to address something important. You don't owe this person immediate forgiveness or immediate reconnection just because they're finally reaching out. The fact that they've decided now is the right time doesn't mean now has to be the right time for you. You're allowed to take time to respond. You're allowed to ask questions before deciding how much access to give them back into your life. You're allowed to set boundaries around the pace and depth of reconnection, even if part of you is thrilled they've finally broken the silence. Their timeline reaching this point doesn't obligate your timeline to match it instantly. For those of you where this reconnection is romantic in nature, where this person who stopped communicating was someone you had feelings for, someone you maybe even loved, I want to address the specific emotional complexity of that situation. There's likely a part of you that's going to feel an immediate surge of hope when this contact happens, a hope that maybe this means what you've quietly wished it might mean. And there's likely also a more protective part of you that's going to want to guard against being hurt again, against opening back up, only to have the silence return later. Both of these parts of you are valid, and you don't need to silence either one in favor of the other. Let yourself feel the hope. Let yourself also feel the caution. Navigate the actual conversation with both present, rather than letting one override the other completely. What I'm also seeing, and this feels important to share, is that this reconnection, regardless of what form it ultimately takes, is going to bring you some form of closure or clarity that you've actually been needing, even if you haven't consciously realized how much the lack of closure has been affecting you. There's a particular kind of unresolved energy that lingers when a meaningful connection simply fades into silence without any real conversation about why. That unresolved quality has likely been taking up more mental and emotional space than you fully tracked. Once this contact happens, once words are actually exchanged rather than just silence stretching on indefinitely, something in you is going to settle, regardless of whether the ultimate outcome is reconciliation or a more definitive, conscious ending. Here's something specific I want you to watch for in how this unfolds. Pay attention to whether this person mentions anything about what they've been going through during the silence, anything that gives you insight into their internal experience during this time apart. That information is going to be valuable in helping you understand not just that they're reaching out, but why now specifically, and what's actually changed for them that's making this reconnection possible or necessary from their perspective. I also want to prepare you for the possibility that this conversation might not resolve everything immediately. Sometimes reconnection after significant silence happens in stages rather than one complete, tidy conversation. There might be an initial tentative exchange, followed by some space, followed by a deeper conversation later. Don't expect or demand that everything gets resolved in a single message exchange. Allow the reconnection to unfold at whatever pace feels organic, even while trusting that the initial contact, whenever it happens, is genuinely significant and not something to dismiss or downplay. For those of you who initiated the silence yourselves, who were the one who stopped communicating rather than the one who was left wondering, I want to speak to you specifically as well. If you're the one who pulled away, and you're now sensing that this person might be the one reaching back out. I want you to examine honestly why you created that distance in the first place. Was it protective, a necessary boundary that served you well? Or was it more reactive, perhaps born from fear or hurt pride rather than genuine clarity about what you needed? Understanding your own motivation for the original silence is going to help you respond authentically when contact resumes, rather than either defaulting back into old patterns or maintaining distance out of habit rather than genuine continued need. Let me also address what happens if, despite everything I'm seeing, you decide that you don't actually want this connection back in your life, even after they reach out. That's a completely valid outcome, too. Sometimes the universe brings closure not through reconciliation, but through final clarity, a clean ending that allows both people to truly move forward rather than existing in the limbo of unresolved silence. If this person reaches out and your gut response, once you sit with it honestly, is that you've genuinely moved past wanting them in your life, trust that. Don't force reconnection just because the door has reopened. An open door doesn't obligate you to walk through it. What I sense most strongly, though, for the majority of you watching this, is that there's still something meaningful here worth exploring. Not necessarily a full return to exactly what existed before. Relationships rarely resume in identical form after significant time apart, but something real and worth your attention. A conversation that needs to happen. A piece of understanding that's been missing. A connection that, even if it doesn't return to its previous shape, deserves acknowledgement rather than permanent silence. Here's my final guidance as you prepare for what's coming. Keep your phone accessible over the next several days. Don't dismiss unfamiliar notifications or names you haven't seen in a while as unimportant before checking them. Stay open to the possibility of this contact, even while maintaining clear boundaries about what you will and won't accept and how the reconnection unfolds. And when it happens, when you see their name appear after this stretch of silence, take a breath before responding. Feel whatever comes up, the hope, the hurt, the relief, the caution, all of it, and then respond from the most grounded, clearest version of yourself that you can access in that moment. This silence is ending. Not because of anything dramatic you need to do to force it, but simply because the timing has finally aligned on their end for them to reach back across the distance that's existed between you. What you do with that reaching out is entirely your choice. But you deserve to know it's coming, so you're not caught completely off guard, and so you can meet this moment with intention rather than pure reaction. Have you been thinking about someone you used to talk to regularly but haven't heard from in a while? Has a specific name come to mind while you've been watching this? Drop a comment and share who came up for you. And if this reading resonated with that particular unresolved feeling you've been carrying, please subscribe for more guidance. Someone from your past is about to break their silence. Stay alert, stay grounded, and trust yourself to navigate whatever comes next.